My husband, who had been dead for 7 years, suddenly came back, bringing along his mistress and their child. He said, "Rower gave birth to my son. You should step down from your position as my wife." I signed the divorce papers on the spot and left that very night, because I knew his entire family was about to be executed. Only by divorcing him could I avoid being implicated. A few months later, I stood in the crowd, smiling as that scumbag and his manipulative mistress were executed by Ling Chi, death by 1,000 cuts. On my mother-in-law's birthday, my husband, presumed dead for 7 years, suddenly rose from the grave and returned. And with him came the mistress and the child he had pampered all these years. Li Yanshi was dressed in luxurious robes. The woman standing next to him wore silk and jewels, nothing like someone who had supposedly been struggling in exile for 7 years. And then there was me, holding down the fort at the general's manor for those same 7 years, a living widow. Every day, I served my mother-in-law with unwavering diligence, managing the household with care. Gone was any trace of the delicate young woman I once was. "Mother, today is your birthday. I brought your grandson to celebrate with you and wish you health and longevity." My mother-in-law beamed, taking off the jade bracelet she had brought as part of her dowry and pressing it into Lin Rower's hand. "Thank you for taking care of my son all these years. You've worked hard." Lin Rower looked at me with a triumphant glint in her eyes, like a victor. Li Yanshi took the opportunity to apply pressure. "You've had it hard these 7 years, too. But Rower had it even harder taking care of me during that time. She even bore me a son. She's done a great service to the Li family. You should give up your place as the legal wife." I sneered internally. These three had returned to the capital half a month ago. Yet they deliberately chose to show up only today, at my mother-in-law's birthday banquet. Obviously, they were trying to force me to give way in front of a crowd, to hand over the title of the legal wife to Lin Rower so she could step over me. She'd become the wife. I'd be reduced to a concubine. And they'd paint it all as a tale of loyalty and filial piety. In my past life, in this exact same scenario, I had refused Li Yanshi's proposal. I truly believed he was merely bewitched by that vixen. I thought that once he returned home, he'd realize how virtuous and devoted I was and come back to me. But I never imagined that when things didn't go his way, his love would turn into deep hatred. When disaster struck the Li family, he was the first to throw me under the bus. I was executed by Ling Chi, and my entire Shin family was exiled to the far reaches of the empire, where they all perished in a foreign land. But now, I've been reborn. And this piece of garbage wants me to suffer for him again? Get lost. Seeing me stay silent for a while, my mother-in-law took the initiative to persuade me. "Wanyu, I know you're a kind and virtuous girl. Why not just let Yanshi have his way?" I smiled gently. "You're right, mother. I should fulfill my husband's wish." Li Yanshi and Lin Rower both lit up with delight, brimming with smugness. Li Yanshi eagerly asked, "You really agree?" "Yes," I nodded. "I've been married into the Li family for 7 years. You've been presumed dead for 7 years. I never gave the Li family a child. That's my failure. If I had known you weren't actually dead, I would have brought you two back long ago to enjoy life with us. And now your child is already 7. It's time he's officially recognized by his ancestors." My voice rang clear and firm for all to hear. The night of our wedding, 7 years ago, Li Yanshi had left for war. 3 months later, news came that he had died in battle. And now he was back, with a mistress and a 7-year-old child in tow. Feigning death and hiding the truth from the court? That's a capital offense. He didn't catch the trap in my words at all. Instead, he proudly said, "You really are understanding. Once Rowe enters the manor, she'll be your elder sister. Since you have no children of your own, you should hand over your dowry to her. In the future, you can serve by her side as a noble concubine." What a joke. Not only did he want my dowry, he expected me to serve her like a maid? "Are you after my dowry?" Caught off guard, the scumbag flushed with anger and accused me. "I only want Yaobang to be officially acknowledged and to give Rogo a proper title." "Why are you being so jealous?" Trying to paint me as the petty one again? Too bad. I'm done playing this game. I gave a cold laugh. I'm a daughter of the Shin family. I would never be someone's concubine. If she wants the position of the legal wife, then wait for me to divorce you first. Li Yanshi pointed at me and roared. I'll divorce you right now. But I grabbed his finger and twisted it hard, making him cry out in pain. No, you don't get to divorce me. I divorce you. I turned to my maid Xiao He. Bring me pen and paper. I quickly wrote out the divorce letter and flung it at Li Yanshi. He tried to raise his hand to point at me again, but I shot him a glare. He froze on the spot. Absurd. To think I would take this kind of humiliation? In your dreams. I slowly looked up at him, and every word I said was like a dagger. If you don't sign, then Lin Roa and her son will never be allowed through this gate. Without my agreement, they'll always be just a pair of shameless lovers, and that child will be a bastard for life. No one had expected me to be this forceful. Li Yanshi was too shocked to speak. Lin Roa glared at me with hatred. I glared right back. Without my permission, she'd always be a concubine. She started to panic and secretly tugged on Li Yanshi's sleeve, urging him to agree. For the sake of his beloved, Li Yanshi gritted his teeth and signed the papers. You wretched woman, get out of the Li manor. Of course I'd leave. I was only worried that if I stayed a minute longer, I'd die just like last time. But before I left, I made sure to take everything that belonged to me. My other maid, Xiao Yu, rushed over. Miss, the carriage is ready. I nodded in satisfaction. Good. Let's load up the dowry. One chest after another, we moved all my dowry items into the carriage. Watching this, my darling mother-in-law stomped her feet in anger. Wan Yu, what are you doing? How dare you touch Li family property? What a joke. Just because the Li family was a military household, they thought they were so noble? Truth is, all their wealth these years came from my dowry. Yet they still looked down on my mother for being a merchant and looked down on me too. Well then, if you look down on me, don't eat my rice. When did my dowry become Li family property? Watching chest after chest of gold, silver, and jade being hauled away, the old matriarch of the Li family fainted from rage. Lin Roa glared at me with tears in her eyes, her voice still saccharine but laced with venom. Elder sister, now that you've married into the Li family, your dowry naturally belongs to us. How can you take Li family property back to your mother's house? It'll make us a laughingstock. Leave it behind for her to enjoy. What, do I look like a fool? I waved the divorce letter in her face. Open your dog eyes and look clearly. I've divorced Li Yanshi. My dowry leaves with me. It's all in black and white. Try to deny it. Li Yanshi finally realized what I had done. He lunged at me, yelling, You tricked me? Of course I tricked you, you idiot. I knew he'd be too proud to read the divorce letter carefully, so I added plenty of clauses. Now it was signed and sealed. No takebacks. Don't like it? Go ahead and sue me. Tell the whole world you're trying to snatch your ex-wife's dowry. Let's see how that works out for you. Li Yanshi was so furious that his face turned red and his neck bulged with rage. He shouted at me to get out. I immediately told the coachman to drive faster. The members of the Li family could only glare resentfully at Lin Roa as they watched my dowry being carted away, trunk after trunk. And this was just the beginning. I was afraid they might actually rip Lin Roa to shreds later. When my parents saw me come home, they were completely dumbfounded. My father stared at me, eyes wide. Did you seriously do something as outrageous as divorcing your husband? Father, should I have kept that scumbag around as a souvenir for the new year? He was so angry he raised his hand to hit me, threatening to tie me up and send me back to the Li family. My mother clutched me and wept, begging him not to. My father, still fuming, pointed at her and yelled, Can't you see I'm doing this for her own good, for her future? I knew my parents meant well. They were just afraid I'd ruin my reputation and live out my days alone. But forcing me to stay with that disgusting man day and night? I'd rather jump into a well and end it. I pulled my father aside and whispered a few things to him. He looked at me in shock. Is what you said true? I sneered coldly. Father, just wait. You'll see the entire Lee family brought to ruin soon." Just then, a maid came rushing in. "Master. Bad news. The young master has been arrested by the Shuntian prefecture." Upon hearing that my little brother had been taken, my father and I rushed straight to the magistrate's office. From afar, I saw Li Yanshi already there, with Lin Rower clinging to his arm. A scumbag and his scheming mistress. Truly a perfect match. Li Yanshi stepped in front of me to block the way. "So, do you want to settle this publicly or privately?" Turns out, my brother had found out I divorced Li Yanshi. In a rage, he beat up Li Yanshi's eldest nephew at the academy and was arrested. I gave Li Yanshi a cold look and motioned for him to explain further. A public settlement meant letting the prefect hear the case and make a judgment. But the prefect of Shuntian was Li Yanshi's brother-in-law. Could I really count on him to rule fairly for my brother? Just one look at the smug expression on Li Yanshi's face told me the answer. So I asked, what would a private settlement look like? Before Li Yanshi could answer, Lin Roa eagerly jumped in. 10,000 taels of silver in compensation, and a public confession from you, admitting you had an affair with another man and were caught, which is why you were sent back to your family. They wanted money, and to ruin my reputation? They had been secretly living together without marriage and feared public condemnation. Now they wanted me to take the fall and admit to scandal? Shameless. Utterly shameless. Let's go with public judgment then. Li Yanshi looked surprised. Are you sure? If your brother ends up with a stain on his record, he won't even qualify for the imperial exams next year. His future in officialdom will be over. Really? I smiled coldly. Well, I just don't believe that. Enough talking. I'll see you in court. Lin Roa scoffed, shouting. You'll be begging us on your knees soon, and we still won't give you a chance. Let's see who ends up on their knees. Little witch. She's in for a surprise. In court, the prefect officially took up the case. Both my brother and Li Yanshi's nephew, Li Zhixiong, were summoned. As soon as his nephew was carried into the courtroom, Li Yanshi called out, Lord Prefect, please render a fair verdict and clear my nephew's name. He clung to Lin Rower and gave me a smug look. He was clearly expecting me to grovel and admit fault. But then came the verdict. Li Zhixiong insulted a virtuous woman with vulgar language. A grave offense. 30 strokes of a cane to serve as a warning to others. Everyone was stunned. Li Yanshi snapped out of it and shouted at the judge, Lu Xiangyu. My lord, that must be a mistake. Li Zhixiong is the victim. It was Shun Juanzi who did the beating. Lu Xiangyu calmly asked, and what exactly is wrong with Shun Juanzi defending his sister's honor? Li Yanshi finally noticed the faint smile on my face and flew into a rage. You crooked official. Can't you tell right from wrong? Aren't you my brother-in-law? Seeing him lunge forward in anger, I raised my voice. Guards. The Li family is resisting the verdict. They're trying to attack the magistrate. Before Li Yanshi could even react, the constables had already slammed him to the ground. In the end, both uncle and nephew were beaten 30 times each and carried out of the courthouse on stretchers. As I led my brother out, we ran into the Li men again. Li Yanshi glared at me and cursed. You wretched woman! What did you bribe Lu Xiangyu with to make him turn against the Li family? I smirked. What? Do you think your Li family is some kind of royal bloodline? Li Yanshi had been gone for 7 years. He had no idea what the Li family was really like now. After old General Li passed away, the Li household had already begun to decline. That old woman in the back courtyard could still throw tantrums, but any face they maintained in public was all thanks to my dowry smoothing things over. And now they seriously thought they were untouchable? Earlier, Li Yanshi demanded 10,000 taels in compensation. Does he even understand what 10,000 taels means? All I did was slip Lu Xiangyu 500 taels, and the whole thing was wrapped up neatly. That clueless scumbag. In my past life, I must have been blind to fall for him. As I left with my family, I deliberately bumped into the stretcher carrying Li Yanshi. The servants lost balance, and he went flying off, landing flat on his backside. Ag! He screamed in pain, utterly humiliated. Lin Rower rushed up, hugging his arm with tearful concern. Husband, does it hurt? Rower's heart aches so much. How could elder sister treat you like this? Li Yanshi glared at me, grinding his teeth. You venomous woman. I'll never forgive you.
Ha!
Even if he wanted to forgive me, I had no plans of forgiving him. Just wait. The real reckoning for the Li family is still to come. Later, Xiao looked worried as she flipped through the ledger. Young miss, Jinbao Pavilion had another loss this month. Where are we going to cover the deficit from? Jinbao Pavilion was one of the private businesses my mother gave me as part of my dowry. It had always turned a good profit, until the Li family kept showing up to leech off it. After my rebirth, I only had time to sever ties with the Li family and retrieve my dowry. I hadn't yet had time to clean up the rest of my private businesses. Xiao's reminder came at just the right time. Let's go, I said. We're going to Jinbao Pavilion. As soon as I arrived at Jinbao Pavilion, I heard a loud and arrogant voice from inside. Wrap up all these sets of jewelry for me. I'll take that jade bangle too. The speaker was none other than Li Yanshi's sister-in-law, Zhao Yueying. Standing beside her was Lin Rower. Their swagger was so outrageous, you'd think they were here to rob the place. I glanced at the shopkeeper and called out.
Well?
Hurry up and wrap everything up for Madame Li and send it over to the Li residence. Zhao Yueying turned and saw me. Her expression was full of disdain, and she snorted through her nose. I smiled as I walked forward and handed her the ledger. That'll be 600 taels of silver. Small business, no credit. Zhao Yueying was stunned. She looked at me in disbelief.
What do you mean by that?
I frowned. You pay for what you buy. Doesn't Madame Li understand such a simple concept? Before Zhao Yueying could speak, Lin Rower jumped in. An elder sister-in-law is like a mother. How can you speak to her that way, sister? Zhao Yueying was pleased to be backed up. She chimed in gleefully. Rower, you don't understand. Some people have never even heard the word manners. I smiled faintly and looked at Lin Rower. That smug expression she failed to hide. Yeah, I caught it all. Elder sister-in-law like a mother? If I had raised a coward like Li Yanshi, I'd have drowned myself by now. Would I still be out shopping? Do you really think Jinbao Pavilion belongs to you? Don't forget, the name on this shop is Shun, not Li. It has absolutely nothing to do with you. Trying to rob me in broad daylight? Xiao, go report this to the Shuntian prefecture. Xiao immediately turned to leave. Zhao Yueying's maid tried to block her. But Xiao didn't flinch. She opened her mouth and yelled, Help! Robbery! We're being robbed. Zhao Yueying flushed bright red. She ordered her maid to place the jewelry back on the counter and glared at me furiously.
Fine, take it.
Lowly merchants and peddlers. No wonder my brother-in-law couldn't stand you. I gave her a cold look and shouted, And what gives you the right to look down on merchants and peddlers? Do we not work hard, earn our money through labor, and feed ourselves with our own skills? Without people like us, would the capital be as prosperous as it is today? Thanks to Xiao's yelling earlier, a crowd had already gathered outside. Now that Zhao Yueying was insulting common folk on the street, she instantly incurred public wrath. So just because you're from a noble family, you get to look down on regular people? Our current emperor loves his people and works hard for the country. His name is being tarnished by corrupt officials like you. You're the ones who are truly lowly. Unable to handle the backlash, Lin Rower tugged Zhao Yueying's sleeve, trying to sneak away with her. Hold it right there, I called out. Immediately, the shop assistants blocked their path. Zhao Yueying turned around, fuming. Xinwen Yu, what more do you want? I stepped forward and grabbed Lin Rower's wrist. There was a white jade bangle from Jinbao Pavilion still on her hand. Trying to sneak something out, little tramp? Not happening. She struggled, unwilling to remove it. I shouted to Xiao, Bring me a knife. Let's chop off this filthy hand. Lin Rower turned pale, with fright. You wouldn't dare. Try me.
Terrified, she stopped struggling.
I yanked the bangle off with such force that her wrist dislocated. She cried out in pain, tears streaming down her face, while I couldn't help but laugh. Touch my things, and that's what you get. I pocketed the bangle and shoved the compiled ledger into Zhao Yueying's arms. You've got 3 days. Settle the outstanding debts. If not, I'll report it to the authorities. If the Shuntian prefecture won't take the case, I'll go straight to the imperial court. Zhao Yueying turned red with fury and panic. The Leaf family weren't the only ones who looted Jinbao Pavilion. Even Zhao Yueying's relatives came every now and then for free goods. Well, now I was going to make them cough up every last coin. That kind of money? Oh, it'd kill them to part with it. They thought I was a sick kitten. Well, this tiger has claws. Next time they try to take anything for free, I'll make sure they lose their hands. Xiaohe walked in with a sigh. Miss, Jinbao Pavilion still hasn't collected the debts. Of course I knew they wouldn't give in so easily. Xiaoyu, I said, bring the people I told you to prepare. We're heading out. If they won't let me live peacefully, then I'll make sure the Li family never has a peaceful day again. The moment we reached the gate of the Li residence, the gatekeeper gave me a look of disdain. What kind of cast-off woman still dares to show her face here, at the Li family? I drew the sword at my waist and placed it against his throat. Who are you calling names? He still had the gall to argue, so I pressed the blade tighter. It nicked his neck, and he immediately wailed in terror. Madam, I was wrong. Please spare me. I gave him a hard kick. You dogs who bully the weak. Xiaohe, drag him aside and give him a proper beating. Before he was even dragged off, the old Madame Li arrived with her family, supported by Li Yanshi. How dare you stir up trouble at the gates of the Li family? Tired of living, are you? I stepped on the gatekeeper's head and stared them all down with menace. Damn right I came here to cause trouble today. Let's see what they can do about it. Li Yanshi stomped his foot in fury. Seize her. Take her to the prefecture. The Leaf family servants prepared to move, but I raised my sword and shouted. Who dares? They froze in terror. Debts must be paid. The Leaf family owes me more than 10,000 taels of silver. Are you paying or not? Li Yanshi barked back. You venomous woman. Who owes you anything? I didn't even need to respond. Xiaohe stepped forward and threw the ledgers onto the ground in front of them. Papers scattered like funeral offerings, such poetic justice. I sneered at Li Yanshi. Can't read? Want me to spell it out for you? Li Yanshi's neck was bright red with anger, but he didn't dare step forward with my sword so close. Coward. I ignored him and turned to Zhao Yueying. It's been 3 days. You still haven't paid up. What's the excuse now? Put on the spot, she tried to shrink away but had no choice but to blurt out. Mother said everything you gave the Leaf family doesn't need to be paid back. If you don't like it, go ahead and sue. The next second, she was silenced by a glare from the old Madame Li. Zhao Yueying didn't want to drag her family into this mess, and she didn't dare go head-to-head with me either, so she used the old Madame as a shield. As if that would scare me, the old Madame Li struck her cane against the ground. Go ahead and sue us. So they were all ready for me to take legal action, huh? How boring. I turned around and shouted to the 100 or so people I brought with me. The Leaf family refuses to pay their debts. Are you okay with that? No, the crowd shouted in unison. The roar was deafening. It sent panic through the entire Li household. The old Madame Li pointed at me and snapped. What? Are you planning to flatten the Li residents with this mob? Yanshi, go summon your uncle to bring the troops. Li Yanshi's uncle, General Sun, quickly got word and arrived at the manor. He strode over with an imposing presence and stopped in front of me. So, you're the one trying to tear down the Li residence? I stayed silent. The Li family thought that with someone backing them up, I wouldn't dare stir up trouble. Their faces were smug with confidence. Lin Rower stood beside Li Yanshi, wearing the proud expression of a victor. Zhao Yueying shouted excitedly. Uncle, it's her. She has no regard for the law. Arrest her now and confiscate everything from the Shin family as an example to others. I glanced at her with indifference. What a fool. Some people really never learn. General Sun raised his hand and pointed at me. Seize her. The soldiers were about to step forward when suddenly an old woman flung herself at General Sun and grabbed his leg tightly. Heavens above. The officials are killing people. They're driving us commoners to death. General Sun's face darkened, and he raised his riding whip to strike her. But I was quicker. I grabbed his arm and said, General Sun, one strike from you, and she's a dead woman. Are you really prepared to take a life so carelessly? He growled coldly. She tried to attack me. She deserves to die. Before I could respond, the hundred-some people behind me all shouted, Then kill us all. That stunned General Sun. Are you all trying to die? I looked at him calmly and asked, These people are all victims of the Lee family. Honest citizens who've come to demand repayment. What's your plan? Kill them all? General Sun narrowed his eyes at me. What exactly is going on here? I gave a subtle glance to the crowd, and two sharp shop assistants stepped forward. General, we work for Jinbao Pavilion. The Lee family owes us over 10,000 taels of silver and refuses to pay. Because of that, we can't issue salaries. Without wages, how are we supposed to live? As soon as the man finished, his mother lunged forward crying, We're going to starve to death anyway. I might as well die right here, at the Lee family gates. She turned toward the stone pillar, about to slam into it. The old Madam Lee panicked and quickly ordered people to stop her. I glanced lightly at General Sun and said, Here's the ledger. If you truly want to stand up for the Lee family, then pay the 10,000 taels yourself. If you won't, then we have no way to survive. We might as well die now. After all, in this world, it's the officials who hold the power. Isn't that right, General Sun? As I finished speaking, the old woman screamed again and rushed toward the pillar. Now it was General Sun's turn to panic. He wasn't stupid. With this many witnesses, if someone really died here, the higher-ups would definitely send someone to investigate. If things went badly, the entire Sun family could be dragged down. He coughed lightly and said, Since there's a dispute, you should go to the Shuntian prefecture for mediation. Trying to walk away after putting on a show? At my signal, the crowd immediately blocked his horse. Great official, you must stand up for us commoners. Don't let the Lee family trample us. Didn't you hear them call him uncle? He's just another corrupt official. How could he possibly give us justice? Then let's all kneel on spikes and write petitions in blood to plead with the emperor. 1 or 2 angry citizens could be silenced, but 100 voices? Impossible to shut them all up. With no way out, General Sun finally turned to Madam Lee. Pay them back. At first, Madam Lee tried to hold her ground, until General Sun snapped at her. Are you seriously going to drag our entire Sun family down with you? That frightened her so much her soul nearly left her body. Shaking with fear, she croaked, Fine, we'll pay. But without my dowry, the Lee family didn't have 10,000 taels to their name. In the end, they had no choice but to offer up all the women's jewelry. I stripped Zhao Yueying and Lin Rower of every last bit of gold, silver, and gemstone they were wearing. Madam Lee was so furious she cursed at Zhao Yueying. Why did you provoke that disaster woman in the first place? Zhao Yueying pouted indignantly. It was sister-in-law's idea. She said if we didn't take it, it'd be a waste, and we could teach that venomous woman a lesson. Madam Lee turned and slapped Lin Roa hard across the face. What a disgrace to this family. Lin Roa ran off crying, clutching her cheek. Oh, what a lovely dogfight this is. Li Yanshi, seeing his precious white moonlight in tears, rushed to follow her, only to be blocked by me. He glared at me in fury. You poisonous woman. Still trying to cling to me? Give it up. Even if you dropped dead at my feet, I wouldn't look at you twice. Excuse me, has he gone mad? What did I do to make him think I still wanted him?
Fine.
Let me correct that mistake. I reached out and yanked the jade pendant hanging from his robe. I'm still 100 taels short. This looks about right, consider it payment. And stop daydreaming. I wouldn't want you even if you were the last man alive. Li Yanshi was so furious he couldn't even catch his breath. You? He pointed at me, completely speechless. Then, with a dramatic gasp, he fainted. Looking at the pathetic man slumped on the ground, I couldn't help but sigh. Winter's coming. Looks like it's the end of the road for the Lee family. Just as I stepped through the door, my mother pulled me aside, anxious. "Daughter, the Leaf family may be declining, but they're still a noble household. You've already divorced him. Why keep provoking them?" I'd love to just sit back and watch the show. But unfortunately, the Leaf family insists on throwing themselves at me to get beaten down. Since they're asking for it, I won't hold back. Mother, don't worry. The Leaf family's days of good fortune are almost over. In just a few days, the truth about Li Yanshi faking his death for 7 years will reach the emperor. That 10,000 taels? It emptied the Li family's reserves completely. Without silver to keep up appearances, their survival route is cut off. The real drama is just getting started. These days, there's gossip from the Li residents every single day. Ever since I took back my dowry, their coffers have been stretched thin. And now that they've paid me back in full, their house is totally drained. I even heard Zhao Yuan got into a fight with Lin Rower this morning over a chicken. She beat Lin Rower so badly, her face was disfigured. Now, there's no one in the entire Li household who doesn't hate Lin Rower. If it weren't for her, those leeches would still be feeding off of me, living a life of luxury. Xiao he recounted all this gossip to me like it was some juicy tale out of a storybook. I was half asleep from listening when a servant came in to report. "Miss Lin Rower is here. She's asking to see you by name." "Let her in." When she entered, there were still scratches on her face. Looks like Zhao Yuan really did beat the hell out of her. "Sister, I admit defeat. Please come back to the Li household. I'm willing to be a concubine." I sneered. What is it about Li Yanshi that makes these women think I can't get over him? That pit of fire, if anyone wants to die in it, be my guest. Just don't drag me down with you. I looked at Lin Rower seriously and asked, "Tell me, what exactly is so great about Li Yanshi?" "He's neither scholarly nor brave. As the son of a military family, he doesn't even have the guts to set foot on a battlefield. A coward like that? You can keep him." Lin Rower stared at me in shock and stammered, "But the past 7 years." I knew what she meant. Outsiders saw me being dutiful and diligent at the Li household for 7 years and assumed I was deeply devoted to Li Yanshi. But for a man I had only met once on our wedding night, how deep could my love truly be? I only stayed because of my parents' teachings and society's expectations.
But now?
I've already died once. Why should I still be afraid of what society thinks? 7 years ago, I thought he was a war hero who died gloriously on the battlefield. Who would have thought he was nothing but a spineless coward? My single statement left Lin Rower speechless. Sure, Li Yanshi was scum, but he was good-looking. And with the title of the general's heir, it was no surprise a girl from a modest background like Lin Rower would cling to him for dear life. I glanced at Xiao He, who walked up to Lin Rower and said curtly, "This way, please." Once she was gone, I immediately turned to my maids. "Stay alert for the next few days. Nothing can go wrong, not a single slip." That flash of malice in Lin Rower's eyes as she left, I saw it. That woman plays dirty. She lost today, but who knows what schemes she'll cook up next. Then, for some strange reason, my mother suddenly insisted on going to Hanshan Temple outside the city to pray. And she insisted I accompany her. She wouldn't take no for an answer, so I had no choice but to rise early and go with her. Who would have guessed we'd be ambushed by mountain bandits on the way? To protect my mother and myself, I decided to play along. The bandit chief, noticing my looks, tried to take advantage of me. He even forced a drug down my throat. Just as things were about to get dire, someone kicked the door open and stormed in with a sword. It was Li Yanshi. He shouted at the bandits, "You vile criminals! How dare you assault a respectable woman in broad daylight?" Then he started fighting the bandit. The absurd part? He actually managed to scare the bandit off. After the scuffle, Li Yanshi rushed over to me. "Wan Yu, are you all right?" That self-righteous concern of his made my skin crawl. My head was spinning, and I tried to push him away, but he threw himself on me, grabbing at my clothes while breathlessly calling my name. "I know you must be uncomfortable. Let me help you." At that moment, I kicked him square in the crotch. Li Yanshi collapsed against the wall, letting out a blood-curdling scream. Ah! I was dizzy and just wanted to get the hell out of there. I staggered toward the door, using the wall for support, but Li Yanshi grabbed me by the ankle. Grimacing through the pain, he raised his sword to my throat. "Shunwan Yu, I'll kill you." Just then, my father and brother arrived just in time. My brother yanked Li Yanshi away and pulled me into his arms. "Sis, are you okay?" I forced myself to nod. He tried to lead me away, but I gestured for him to wait. I slowly walked over to Li Yanshi. His eyes were filled with fear. His voice trembled. "Why you? What are you going to do?" I lined up my foot just right and stomped down hard. The first kick might have only caused him temporary pain. This one would ruin him permanently. After taking the antidote, I slept for a whole day before waking up. When I opened my eyes, the first thing I saw was my mother's tear-stained face. "My darling girl, this is all my fault," I whispered. "Don't cry, Mother. I'm fine now." I'd thought it strange when she insisted we go to Hanshan Temple. She usually prays only at Fahua Temple. After looking into it, we discovered someone had deliberately approached her, told her Hanshan Temple was especially effective for matchmaking. Ever since I divorced and came home, my mother had been worried about my future. She kept looking for new suitors, wanting me to remarry. But when Xiaohe followed that mysterious person, she discovered the same person had also been meeting with Lin Rower. That's when I realized what was going on. So I decided to turn the trap against them. I never expected Lin Rower to be so cunning, to come up with such a vile plan. She thought I liked heroes. So they staged this entire rescue drama, hoping I'd fall into Li Yanshi's arms and melt with gratitude.
Dream on.
What I didn't expect was how shameless they'd be, drugging me. Thank goodness I'd arranged for father and brother to follow us discreetly. As I was chatting with Mother, a maid came rushing in. "Madam, people from the Li family are at the door. They're demanding we hand over Miss." At this, my mother's face twisted with rage. "They hurt my daughter, and now they have the nerve to come here?"
Perfect.
"I've been waiting for this." With that, she grabbed her sword and stormed out. I quickly got up and followed. This was going to be a good show. Back in the day, my mother was infamous for her fierceness. She'd mellowed out after giving birth to my brother and turning to Buddhism. We hadn't seen her lose her temper in years. But today? What a rare treat. In the main hall, the Li family was still shouting for me to come out. My mother marched straight in, swept her gaze across them all, and asked coldly, "Who's here for my daughter?" Zhao Yueying stood with her hands on her hips, all puffed up. "Your daughter injured our Li family's young master. We're not leaving without her. Hand her over." Smack. Mother slapped her across the face. Zhao Yueying screamed and tried to retaliate, only for my mother to swing her sword at her. With a swish, long locks of hair fell to the floor. Zhao Yueying was so scared she peed herself on the spot. The entire Li family held their breath in horror. Even my little brother stood frozen in shock. He turned to me dumbfounded. "Sis, is that really our mom?" I glanced at him and said, "Want me to call her over, so you can check?" He turned pale and waved his hands frantically. "Madam Shen, such power, such presence." At that moment, Madame Li walked in, supported by none other than Lu Xiangyu, the prefect of Shuntian. Since Lu Xiangyu was married into the Li family, there was no way he could ignore Madame Li's personal appearance. My mother had stirred the pot enough. Now it was time for my turn on stage. When I stepped forward, Madame Li looked at me like she wanted to tear me to pieces. "Poisonous woman, you're the one who ruined my son." I looked back at her coldly. "Madam, it's still unclear who ruined whom." Lu Xiangyu's expression was grim as he turned to me. "Miss Shen, the Li family has accused you of intentionally injuring Li Yanshi. Please come with me to the prefecture." I smiled calmly. Since the prefect himself has come in person, of course, I'll cooperate. But could you give me a moment? Realizing I was stalling, Lin Rower stepped out urgently. She pushed Madame Li forward to pressure Lu Xiangyu into taking me away quickly. Madame Li slammed her cane to the floor. "Do you need this old woman to beg you, Lord Prefect?" Faced with her plea, Lu Xiangyu started to pressure the Shin family, demanding the constables arrest me. If they really dragged me out of the Shin residence like a criminal, my already broken reputation would fall into total ruin. My parents were immediately unwilling to let me go. I turned around to reassure them. Don't worry. I'll go with Lord Prefect. Everything will be fine. When the constables stepped forward to place shackles on me, the Li family beamed with triumph, convinced they had won. But suddenly, a troop of soldiers stormed into the Shan residence. Their leader scanned the room, then barked in a stern voice. They're all here. Arrest everyone. Lin Roa, thinking they'd come for me, smiled with glee and said, Shen Wanyu, you've lost completely. Your whole Shin family is finished today. You're all going to be dragged away like criminals. After her gloating, she even tried to distance herself from us. Sir, we're from the lead general's household. We've got nothing to do with the Shin family. Please don't arrest us. No sooner had she spoken than the soldiers clamped iron shackles around her wrists. Then, one after another, every single member of the Li family was bound, including Lu Xiangyu, the prefect who had married into their family. This must be a mistake. We're from the Li family, not the Shin family, someone cried. But the general on horseback pointed directly at Lin Roa and said, It's the Li family we're here to arrest. Li Yanshi faked his death and deserted his post. His Majesty is furious. The entire Li family is to be executed as a warning to others. Take them all away. The Li family was stunned silent. Just moments ago, they were waiting to watch my downfall. Now they were the ones being hauled away for execution. And to think Lin Roa had gone out of her way to declare she wasn't associated with the Shin family. What a helpful little traitor she turned out to be. As the Li family was dragged away in tears and screams, I looked right at Lu Xiangyu and said, I told you, the Li family would bring nothing but disaster. But you wouldn't listen. The moment I said it, Lu Xiangyu spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted on the spot. News of a northern military defeat had just reached the capital. Officials submitted memorials accusing Li Yanshi of faking his death to escape military service. The emperor, already furious, immediately issued a decree. Execute the entire Li family to make an example of them. In my previous life, after Li Yanshi returned to the capital, he used my dowry to network and got wind of the investigation early. Not only did he frame me and pretend to be dead, but he also got me convicted and dragged my entire Shin family down with him. This time, I didn't shield him. Penniless, Li Yanshi had no connections, no friends in high places, and no inside information. Now the entire Li household would pay the price for his selfish cowardice. Even as she was being dragged off, Lin Roa didn't forget to try and take me down with her. General, Shen Wanyu is Li Yanshi's former wife. Arrest her too. My parents went pale with fear. This was a capital offense, a direct imperial decree. No one could save me if I got caught up in it. I calmly walked up to the general on horseback and said, General, I already divorced Li Yanshi. I have nothing to do with the Li family. Here is the divorce letter as proof. I handed him the document I had prepared in advance, complete with the official seal from the prefecture court, undeniable and legally binding. The general flipped through it and nodded. If you're divorced, you're no longer part of the Li family. You're not implicated. There was also a discreet silver banknote worth 3,000 taels tucked under the letter, enough to make sure he had no reason to dig deeper. Lin Roa was dumbfounded. She glared at me with venom in her eyes. I waved cheerfully at her. See you in the next life. Once everyone had left, my mother burst into tears. Then she threw herself into my arms and hugged me tightly. My precious girl, you scared me to death. I thought I was going to lose you today. My brother choked back his emotions. Sis, thank goodness you divorced that pathetic worm Li Yanshi in time. Otherwise, we'd all have been dragged down with him. Even my mother, who had been grieving over my divorce, nodded vigorously. Good. That divorce was the best decision you ever made. She looked like she was one step away from clapping her hands in celebration. My father, who had been silent this whole time, quietly gave me a thumbs up. The day I returned home, I told him, something's going to happen to the Li family. Deserting the military is a serious offense. It could mean execution for the whole clan. Wise as he was, my father immediately grasped the gravity of the situation. Using the divorce as cover, he severed all ties with the Lee family. Now that the entire Lee household had been arrested, we no longer had to worry about being implicated. But what made me happiest of all, after this, my mother finally stopped trying to matchmake me. Not getting married isn't a tragedy. We have food, wealth, and peace. That's more than enough for a good life. As she said this, my brother chimed in from the side. Sis, I'll take care of you. I looked at my family, smiling, just grateful that they were all safe and well. Who says a woman must marry to live a full life? A good marriage is a blessing. But a bad one? It could cost you your life. I barely escaped the fire pit. I had no intention of jumping back in. For the rest of my life, I'll just be the happy daughter of the Shin family, and that's enough. The end.